Hey BookTube, sorry for the shaky cam. I was having a hard time pushing the button, but now it's pushed. So, what I wanted to talk about today is something that has been bothering me a little bit, and is quite trying, and that is Audible credit stress. I don't know how many others have this disease that I seem to have, but it is extremely stressful and it makes me feel icky, so I thought I would share. And basically, what it is after I listen to the audiobook that I have picked, I look and I go, okay, I have like 3 weeks before I get my next Audible credit. So, I'm like, okay, 3 weeks, I could do this. So I start looking through my little wish list or whatever of what book I'm going to pick next. And because I got my Audible account going at the end of the month, it is at the end of the month when I get to pick my next book. So, what ended up happening was I had picked the book in my head, and I'm like, okay, the next book I'm going to get is the next Travis McGee book by John MacDonald. And I'm really gonna like it, and I'm really excited about it. So I've been building myself up all month to pick this book. Then the day comes, and I could pick it. I get my little circle with a 1 in it, and I'm like, oh my god, I have a credit. And I get all excited. And then I started looking through my wish list, and I was just like, oh, I wonder what books I have in my wish list. Because there's some books on there that I put on there like a couple years ago, and I haven't even looked at since. So I started going through and just going, oh yeah, I remember picking that book. That was a book I wanted to read. And then there were some books on there that I've read the paperback of or the ebook of, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. And then I was just going through, and then I get to the last page, and there were like 3 books that I remember I really, really wanted to read that I had never read. And this happens all the fucking time. Not in this exact way it's done, but in the sense that I have a book I'm going to pick. I have decided all month I'm going to pick that book. I have talked about it in my TBR video. This is the book I'm going to read. And then the day comes, and I'm just like, oh. And then before I know it, I picked a different book. And I'm like, fucking what the hell did I do? And Audible even gives you that option, like, confirm this purchase. Like, don't get too snazzy here. Don't look before you leap, sir. And so I get that, and next thing I know, I'm still picking a book that I wasn't originally gonna pick. So, what ended up happening? Oh, I can't. I'm using my phone. God, I'm such a dick. I was going to get my phone out and show you what book I picked, but I'm recording this video on my phone, so that is not a thing that I'm going to be doing. So anyway, what I ended up picking was a book that says it's by John Doe, but I've read the first like maybe 8 chapters, and there's only been 2 that have been by him so far. But it's called Under the Black Sun, and it's about the it's kind of like an oral history of the LA punk movement from what I'm gonna guess is like from 75 to probably like 87 ish. Most of the stuff I've been listening to is like late 70s. But there's still a lot of book left. Well, I really wanted to read this book when it came out a couple years ago. And so I'm okay that I got it, but I still have this like buyer's remorse. Like, shit, like I was supposed to get this book. And so I just wondered, does anyone else have these like weird, stressful, like panic attack situations when they are getting their free credit on Audible? You know, like what the what? So that happened. I figured I would tell you a horrible story. Okay, so yesterday was awful because my daughter, who is almost 15, she knows everything, so like you can't tell her anything because she already knows it. But two, she's in that weird area where she probably knows every awful thing in the universe, but I am under the impression that she's still my little girl and doesn't know those things. So she watches Dan and Phil. If you haven't watched Dan and Phil before on YouTube, give them a watch. They're pretty funny guys. Well, Phil has always had like a super emo hairdo, and he just got a haircut. And so my daughter comes out to go, "Oh my gosh, Dad, Phil cut his hair. He's not all emo anymore." And I'm like, "Well, what's he have now?" And she's like, "A quiff." I'm like, "A quiff?" And she's like, "Yeah, a quiff." I'm like, "No, that's a quaff." And she's like, "No, it's a quiff. He called it a quiff. It's a quiff." And I'm like, "I'm pretty sure you mean a quaff." And so she's like, "No, Dad, look it up. It's a quiff." So I go into Google and I typed in quiff. And the first question that comes up is, what is a quiff fart? And I'm like, so I read that out loud to like show my daughter, it's a fart you're talking about, not a hairdo. And then she's like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, no, that's a queef." And I immediately couldn't make eye contact with my daughter. I had to look up in the air and like think of other things and like fucking Google. Like, thank you for making that awkward for me. So then I'm like, no. So I'm trying to like change the subject and get back on to normal shit. And I'm like, no, Shaylee, it's a quaff. Ask Zoe. Zoe's from the UK. It's a quaff. So Zoe wasn't here, so I texted her and I'm like, what's Morrissey's haircut? Or what's his hairdo called? And so Zoe writes back, coiffure. And while I'm telling that to Shaylee, my daughter, she's already looking up quaff, which is Quaff, I'm assuming. Two things popped up. One of them is a shot glass, which is a double shot glass that gives you like a chaser and your alcohol on top. And then the next thing down was an Urban Dictionary definition, which was quaff. And I don't even want to tell you what it said, but I will tell you that my daughter image searched it. And it has to do with things that happen to a lady's face. I won't say anything else. If you want to, like, have pornish searches come up in your Google. Just type it in. So my daughter starts screaming because I said a word that ended up being a sex act on Urban Dictionary. And while she image searched looking for pictures of hairdos, she came up with other images that she shouldn't have come up with. So at the end of the day, it was super awkward, and we just sat here, and I still couldn't make eye contact with her. And then I was trying to explain to Shaylee, I'm like, coiffure is COIFFURE or something like that. It's some French fucking word or whatever. By this time, I didn't give a shit if I was right anymore. I just wanted her to stop fucking searching things on her phone. And it was horrible and awful. So I just want to give Google a big high five for making everything super fucking awkward, because that's what Google does. And warn parents around the world. Make sure you know what the fuck you're talking about before you and your kids start fucking Google searching stuff. So yeah. So if you have any funny stories about Google searches, let me know down below. And if you have that Audible horror, let me know down below. Okay, everybody. Like this video if you like it. Subscribe if you haven't. Ding the bell for notifications. If you go to patreon.com/MattWall, you could help support my writing and this channel. And make sure you set the time for BookTube Live this Sunday at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 6 o'clock Pacific, and other times across the world, where I will chat with Steve Donahue on the first ever episode of BookTube Live. Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.